Hello and welcome to Helicopter Training Videos. In this video we're going to talk about how much does it cost to become a helicopter pilot. This is a short clip taken from episode 1 of the Helicopter Train podcast, How to Become a Helicopter Pilot. You can find that full episode in the description or on our YouTube channel's podcast tab. So how much is this all going to cost? So when we talk about the average total costs, remember first of all, this is not just aircraft rental. We're talking about including flight instruction, ground instruction, sim time if simulators are used, check ride fees, getting your medical, books, supplies, and there are many variables. But one thing I would say is do not trust a school who's only giving you the FAA minimum quotes. That is completely unrealistic. We've already sort of talked about that. Go look somewhere else, I would say, if that's what they're using to give you an idea of what you're supposed to be paying. The other thing is these numbers do not include life expenses, the cost of living, right? So certain areas of the country, it's going to be a lot more expensive for rent, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind too. And overall, the cheapest does not mean the best quality of training, does not mean the best chance for your career, the best chance for you to get through your training. So private pilot, typically you're looking somewhere between 20 to 30,000. Instrument, about 25 to 30,000. Commercial, 20 to 30,000. And that's assuming that you do it in that order, private instrument, commercial. CFI, 7 to 12,000, CFII, 8 to 13,000. So overall, you're looking at somewhere between 80 to 120,000. Again, a lot of variability, a lot of different things go into that number. So some tips about how to try to keep it closer to 80 than 120. Having the ability to dedicate your training as to be the thing that you do and not have to break it up with, okay, I can only do training for 2 weeks and then I have to work for 2 weeks. I know that's not possible for everyone, but if you can, try to, if you have to break training up to fund it, I would at least try to get enough money together to complete an entire rating. And maybe you do a lot of ground study beforehand and then you just take 2 weeks off work and you slam the flying, or maybe longer, depends on what training we're doing at that point. Trying to pick things back up again midstream with a break, overall that's going to cost you more money. So if you can, try to at least have enough funding and enough time to get one rating done at a time, if not all of it. The other thing I keep saying, study, study, study. The flying is relatively easy once you get the hang of hovering, etc. It's the studying is the bit that can really drag these things on. I had a student, and one of the things he used to do, and I've had a few other people do this as well, is not only was he taking notes during ground, but after a flight event, he would take notes that I had given him of things he needed to work on, and then he would just go sit alone for 5-10 minutes and do a little log in a notebook of all the little things he learned himself or things he wanted to work on during that flight. And then again, he would review that before he goes flying the next time. Little things like that. And we will do a future episode, I'm sure, about how to be a good student, things you can do. Another thing is be ready to adapt. Turn up to in a flight or a sim or a ground with everything to do every other type of event. Sometimes the sim's down. Sometimes the helicopter's cancelled due to weather and maintenance, etc. Have your books, have your study material, have your headset, etc. so that you can adapt and still make it an event that you can learn from. Maybe you go to turn up for a flight, your aircraft's down, you're fine with studying, you've done enough studying for the day, so maybe there's an opportunity to ride backseat in an R-44 that's going out with another instructor. See if anyone wants to study. Sit in the helicopter sit in a helicopter that's on the ground, just practicing EPs for 20 minutes. Have lunch at the airport cafe with headphones listening to live ATC while you're watching these aircraft move around and reviewing your study notes, etc. Just keep looking for those opportunities to learn and to keep moving forward. Also, I would say keep aside some extra cash for unexpected delays. Things like, I think I'm going to take my check ride next week, then weather comes in, or the examiner's ill, and now you need to put another flight in just to stay current. We've seen those that did not fly for the 2 weeks or more before the check ride had a much, much higher chance of failure on the check ride. So they think they're saving money by not flying in that 2 weeks, and then they fail the check ride. They have to do a training flight with their instructor and another flight with the examiner. So it doesn't work up saving the money at all. And I'm sure there's people out there who are going to have quite a different experience in terms of the numbers. So again, these are just averages that we've seen from the research I've done over the last few years. I'm not telling you there are no other options, but this is what we've seen as average. Hey, if you've already gone through training, or maybe you're partway through, we'd really love to hear about your experience. How much did it cost for your flight training? You got any tips on other ways to save costs for others? So you can send in a written message, or you can record audio at helicoptertrainingpodcast.com/contact, and we might feature your message on a future show. So this clip was just a small piece of what we covered in episode 1 of the Helicopter Train podcast, which was how to become a helicopter pilot. In the full episode, we break down questions like, what are the age, education, and medical requirements? What's the typical training path, and how long does that take? How much does it all cost? And what are the financing options like VA benefits, scholarships, and loans? How do you pick the right helicopter to train in? And how you can get started with free home study resources, plus a bunch of other stuff. So you can find the full episode right here on this YouTube channel under the podcast tab, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Just search for Helicopter Training Podcast. And don't forget, you can start learning right now on the Helicopter Training Videos YouTube channel with video playlists covering things like ground school subjects, flight maneuvers, as well as following along with a student on every training flight from day 1 all the way through to check ride. If you haven't already, please click subscribe to get all the latest videos and help support this channel. And then finally, for more information, including articles and quizzes and resources, and how to support this volunteer project, check out our website, helicoptertrainingvideos.com. Thanks for watching. Fly safe.